This video is proudly sponsored by DigimonCard.io for all your Digimon card, deck building, deck list, card pricing, and discussion needs. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have an updated tier list for the EX2 meta. We have our previous one here for the BT8 meta, and not a lot is going to change, but I do just want to have a video kind of going over my predictions for the EX2 meta. It drops tomorrow as of this video coming out, and then we have an event for it like every week for the next couple weeks, so it's going to be interesting to see what we get from there, and I just kind of want to talk about it, and including we have an event this weekend as an in-person one, so I'm really excited to see what does well, especially from this. But obviously it is an expansion set, which means it is not as large as a regular release. It's more themed based on a couple of smaller archetypes, and that's kind of fun, and in the same way that to get some new archetypes to play with, and just like these mini engines. So I think it's a lot of fun, and I've been doing a lot of testing on my Twitch streams as well, including there is going to be a box opening Friday, so tomorrow as of this video coming out, for some EX2 stuff as well. So make sure to follow me on Twitch if you guys are interested in that, and we're going to be doing some more gameplay testing and everything else, so should be a lot of fun. But here we have the original list, and I think this is still pretty good for what it is. We're going to go to this list. I did remove pretty much all of the fun decks. Most of them were here just because I put them in here for the original list, and Tier Maker's not very good at letting you delete pictures. So I made a new one here for EX2, put everything where it was. In general, I don't think a lot of things are going to change their places, but I am going to probably do some changing at the end. But I do want to just kind of go over the kind of the 7 new archetypes that we got from the set and kind of just go from there. So first we're going to talk about the Gallantmon archetype, and we did get a lot of fun support for this, including the Tamer is fantastic, being able to give blitz to your Gallant, especially since a lot of them have great when attacking, but they're usually evo cost of 4. Being able to just digivolve into it and then have it blitz to have its when attacking effect is great, and I think it's really the Tamer is really what like the deck was missing for a lot of that kind of stuff. So I do like what this Gallantmon stuff is. It does have the old red issue. If you don't find your pieces, you're kind of stuck not doing your chain. But I think it is in a fun spot. I think it's a playable spot. I keep saying fun, but playable is where I want to put this boy. I think it has a lot of good stuff. I do think that it is a little bit bricky, but the secret rare is just such a good finisher too. They can just finish the game, especially since it trashes 1 and then for every additional 10. So if you have your opponent has 10 cards in their trash, it actually trashes 2, and that's before it swings, because then you get to do the damage. So if your opponent has 2 security and 10 or more cards in their trash, you can just digivolve into this. If you have your Takato Tamer out, it gets blitz, and then it does the damage to win the game. So it's a great finisher in a lot of ways, and it's going to be interesting if decks can utilize it to its fullest potential. And I think there's a lot of ways to go for it, especially with the kind of the older Gallantmon stuff, as well as like the Chaos Gallantmon, Megadramon. There's a lot of interesting text for it, and I'm going to put it playable. It might be a little bit low-bally for it, but it's been one of my favorite archetypes for the set. Next up, we have like the Leomon, and this is really more of like an engine more than I would say its own full-fledged archetype, but there are some kind of fun things with this. Is definitely, I'm going to put it right here, fun for right now. There are some ways to do this. There are quite a few Leomons as it is. There's also like some blue and like yellow stuff you can do with it too, which is interesting. But it's not the best archetype, I would say. It has some cool stuff going for it, and it's the archetype of wanting your things to die has done well before, and I think it's okay, but I don't think it's in a I don't know. It really is fun. I'd say it's fun. I think it's a cool engine to tinker around with, but I don't think it's done anything too super good, and I don't expect it to do super well immediately from this set coming out. Next up, we have Sakuyamon. And this one has been a very interesting challenge for it. The idea of this deck is to use the new plugin cards that we get from the EX set, and there are a lot of fantastic combos this deck has, and it works well with Lord Nightmon, and just the idea of doing that. And the only thing that's wrong with it is that it is not uncommon for you just to draw a bunch of plugins and then have nothing to do after that. So that's my big concern with the deck. I do think that it does have some great plays, and if you're able to see all your tools, and it's really reliant on finding your Tamer too, and the Tamer cost 4. So it's which you can free play off your Talmon, but that is something to really consider too. The consistency issues with this, especially with no mulligans. I'd say this is a playable list. I think you're going to have a lot of games where you just don't find your lines. You're going to be very bricked up. And that's kind of the part of it. So I'm going to put in playable, but I've enjoyed playing this one as well. It is quite the deck building challenge in a lot of ways, and I have extremely enjoyed playing it. Next up, we have Gargomon, and I think the best thing about this is that it gave us a new Terriermon rookie. Besides that, nothing really good came out of this. The line is not great. Gargomon is fine for what it does. I mean, it does rest a bunch or suspend a bunch of things, but I don't think that's really good enough for what it is and what it's doing. Green's had such a weird color identity, and the only way it's done well is if it pairs up with blue with Imperadramon, and that really kind of stinks. So I'm not sure exactly what green would need going forward. And a lot of its stuff is squarely just not consistent, and that's part of the problem. And even if it was consistent, some of the cards you go into aren't really worth it. Like Shivamon's a great boss monster, but even going up to it, I don't know. I feel like Shivamon is better most of the time than Gargo anyways, but I don't know. I hope Greens, I think, is going to get some support soon, but it's kind of disheartening to not see it do well for such a long time and still not having a bunch of support from this one. So I'm going to put this in the fun tier. I almost want to put in trash. Do I put in trash tier? Okay, we got a channel first. Putting in trash tier, baby. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But we're gonna fill out the curve here with putting it in trash. So. Next up, we do have Justimon. I will say I have not tested with this a lot, so I'm going to put it back down before we spoil where we're going to put it. Wherever could I? But I think it has some cool things, and the boss monster's fun, and there's a lot of theme for it. But I don't think it's super good. I'm going to get spoilers. Okay, there we go. I put it in fun. I think fun is where it belongs. And I think that's fine. And maybe it can even go up to playable and competitive, but I haven't seen anyone play this, and I haven't seen it do well on the Japanese meta side. And I could just be looking at the wrong places or playing the wrong people for that. But I don't think it's doing... It's very cool. Don't get me wrong. It's a very, very cool boss monster, and the whole idea of it is cool. And it's finally like we have like a black kind of tamer archetype, which we haven't really had. Obviously it's not with hybrids, but like just having the idea of going in this is cool, and I like it. But at the same time, I don't think it's doing... I don't know. Black has not done super well. X antibody is probably the best bet for that, or maybe even like a splash with red, Black Warrior Greymon. But it's also just kind of had this issue where it doesn't really have the consistency to do well and to get to its boss monsters, and its boss monsters are just fine. They're not busted, and they don't win the game when you get to them, or they don't help you control the game. They're just kind of neat, and then they can get popped, and then you don't know what to do after that. Next up, we do have the Bezelmon, and this has been a very interesting archetype. We have seen some Itmons and Bezelmon stuff before, and the new idea with this is the idea of using this with the trashing from deck archetype. Being able to, you have a whole bunch of new effects from this and the whole lines where if they hit from trash, you get effects of like being able to pop something, being able to play an Itmon for free, being able to trash more cards, being able to gain a memory. There are a whole lot of good cards to put in this. There's a lot of good effects from you get benefits for. I'm going to put this up in the competitive tier, I believe. I'm going to even put it past Beelstarmon. I think a lot of people are going to be testing this, and I think it has some good endgame boss material. The blast mode, being able to get this Security Attack +1 and everything else that kind of goes with this guy, I think is fantastic. And it's a really good game plan. It is RNG heavy, especially being able to set up your trash and being able to get the right cards in your trash at the right time. There is, you will have games where you just don't see it, and then you can't do anything about it, just like any other deck. But I think it's in a good spot. I think people are going to be playing it. And the only bad thing about it is that you have to get 4 of these bad boys in their secret rare. So you do have to do that. But I think as a kind of the archetype to go into this, it's probably the second best archetype to go into this meta. And what could be the best one? Oh, who knows? Why would Eggman put the Mother D Reaper one at the end? And I'd be like, because it's color coordinated, but it is going to go whoop all the way up here. And if you guys don't know what this card does, it's complicated, so I don't blame you, but it is probably one of the best decks of the format, and in the very least a gatekeeper of the format. And no, I'm not talking about this guy, but I mean, like, it's just a very oppressive deck. It's very it's is kind of like a guest character in the sense that it's like a deck from a different game that they brought into Digimon, because there's no devolution, nothing has levels, and it's thematic, and I think that's really cool. And it's also incredibly cheap. You can probably build a deck for under $20, and like with one box, you can probably build a deck like almost twice over if you get enough searchers. So it is a very impressive deck, and in general, a lot of decks. It gets to a game state where you just literally can't do damage anymore, and then you can't do anything until they decide that they want to win. So that is part of the reason for it. But I also will say that it being a presence in the format can make a couple of other decks be a little bit better. Obviously, if you rush it down, there's a chance that they just don't have their defense, and you just kind of go from there. And it does have some interaction on the board, but it doesn't have a lot about it. So I am going to change some tier list spots for this. So some last kind of remarks on here. I think it's better than Yellow Hybrid, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's my guess. I think Imperialdramon is still fantastic for what it is. It's a fast, aggressive deck, which is able to do a lot of damage, especially over D Reaper, and I think that's a fantastic way to beat the deck, is just to beat them first, especially since you do have like stuff like Hammer Sparks and stuff like that, which is probably like one of the few ways that the Reaper itself can lose if you just gain enough memory to switch it back to your turn. So I do like having that available to us. And from there, so I think Yellow Hybrid's fine, but again, they can just do like 10 damage in one turn, and you can get to like 9 security, but 10's kind of tough, and it kind of just prevents you from going off. So I think this is good. Obviously, you can run cards like Holy Flame, which I think will help you, and I think people will start teching that in more to help the matchup for it, but I don't know. I think this will be a little bit better than Yellow Hybrid, and a lot of people will have to respect this deck to make the changes for the matchup change. What else do we got? Mastermind is probably... I'll probably keep it in competitive. That's probably the right call. Obviously, you have like some interaction with it, but you also don't get any popping on Mother D Reaper because nothing has levels. So unless you just do like 2 Flame Hell Scythes in one turn and pop a 12k, I think that is something that happens. Blue Hybrid, I think, is still fine. If they're not fast enough, though, then you just can't win. Maybe I'll put it now. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. Yeah, if you run Trump Sword, you have a way to like not die to Reaper, so that's good. Other than that, I don't think. This deck's fine. I think I'll probably leave it there. The one that I'm moving up for sure, I think I'm going to put Armor Rush up, which I think I've just been getting like slowly happier with it every couple weeks. It's still hard to play, and it doesn't top all the time, but my experience is that it has a good matchup against Reaper, and because it is a fast aggro deck that is very tricky to get rid of the pieces, especially since half the checks in security are just going to be 1k searchers, so it is very easy just to get a bunch of swings in and then just kind of beat them out with it. So that is something to look into. I think it is a good deck. And then we kind of have, I'm going to put all 4 of these together. And all 4 of these are pretty much very similar decks. They are these red or black aggro decks that just get into a really big boy, and then they just start hitting you with it. And there are some ways to get rid of it with Reaper. There's some interaction, but not a lot of it. And so if you are playing a deck without that interaction, or you're just able to go into your big boys, you can do it. Especially since Black War Greymon can actually swing over the Mother as well. If you do have the Metal Greymon underneath it, and you become 15k or more, even just tying it with 15k is enough most of the time. So that is like one of the hard counters, I'd say, is like this guy being able to do his stuff. And so you do have to watch out for that. Ancient Grey can still just do all the damage in the world, which is fantastic. And then X Antibody kind of in the same spot. So I'd say like all of these have a chance to move up. If I was to choose one, I would probably put Black Metal War Grey a little bit higher. And then, I don't know, these are probably fine. But again, I think these would have some better than average Reaper matchups, and so that's why they're on my eye for that kind of stuff. And obviously, all 3 of these decks have topped in the past, but they are very tricky and very RNG centric, so you do have to be careful about that. Anything else? No, I'll probably leave everything else where it's at. But I think these 4 decks are kind of the make or break of if they can be moved up or not in the next couple weeks. They're the ones I'm going to have my eye on and kind of check from there. But that is going to be the video for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do know we just made one a couple weeks ago, but I did want to kind of talk about the EX2 stuff in a broad way before it got released, and that is what we've done. So again, if you guys want to check out a box opening and some more testing, I will be streaming Friday, this upcoming Friday, which is Friday, June 24th. So make sure to follow me on Twitch. And obviously look forward to some more EX2 content for the next couple weeks. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.